Do you want to leave too? Here's a verse with a somewhat shocking reference. John 6:66. The numbers in that verse sure get my attention. John 6:66. But the content of that verse is even more chilling. Here it is. Here's the verse. As a result of this, many of his disciples withdrew and were not walking with him. That's Jesus, not walking with him anymore. And then after that exodus, Jesus turned to his disciples and asked, "Do you want to leave too?" So I'm asking you, do you want to leave too? If you're millennial or Gen Z, that question might really hit home. Lots of millennials have bailed on the church, as have many of my generation. Jesus faced that in John 6. Here's the context in John 6. Jesus was popular, very popular. A crowd of over 5,000, can you imagine that? Over 5,000 people followed him up onto a mountain on the east side of the Sea of Galilee. He miraculously fed them, and they wanted to make him king. Isn't it fascinating how popular he was when he met their physical needs? But Jesus wanted nothing to do with it. He slipped away alone to another place on the mountain, and he sent his disciples away across the Sea of Galilee to Capernaum. And then in the middle of the night, in the middle of the sea, a storm hit the disciples' boat. And Jesus, walking on the water, calmed their storm, again meeting their physical needs. He got in the boat and continued with them. When Jesus got to the other side, he answered a few questions and then delivered a message about his body and his blood, and that message offended many. And it sifted out the serious from the frivolous. John 6:66 records the fact that many withdrew and were not following him anymore. And you see, that's exactly what has happened with many millennials today. You may be one of them. Back to John 6, when Jesus first landed on the west side of the Sea of Galilee, the people, seeing no second boat, asked, "When did you get here?" I think the real question was, how did you get here? But his answer was penetrating, unusual. He said, "You only seek me to meet your physical needs. You need to work for the food that produces eternal life." And they responded, "What shall we do that we may work the works of God?" That's a really good question for anyone to ask. Paraphrased, "Okay, God, what do you want from me?" The answer Jesus gave it's still the same today. This is what he said. "This is the work of God, that you believe in him, Jesus, whom he has sent." That's John 6, verse 29. You see, Jesus explained to the crowd that he was the bread of life, pointing to the fact that it would take the sacrifice of his body and the shedding of his blood to secure salvation for all who believed. And many in the crowd, they just didn't like that. They grumbled, and they left. They bailed on Jesus. They hung around when their physical needs and desires were met. But then they left. That sounds like much of the shallow consumerism, self-help Christianity preached today. When many deserted Jesus back then, he asked his disciples if they wanted to leave too. That doesn't sound like a very good marketing plan, does it? Who would reject the crowds wanting to make him king? Who would give a speech that would drive the frivolous away and drive down the numbers? Who would ask his inner circle if they wanted to leave too? I'll tell you who would do that. Jesus would. And in many ways, it's just the same today. A lot of people have tried a "what's in it for me" Christianity. They've gone to church or a youth group to get their needs and desires satisfied. You see, to many, church is a social club with optional dues. And many church leaders today foster that mentality. Have you been a victim of that? And now, have you started thinking about bailing out, or have you already left? Let me tell you this. That shallow, self-help, consumerism Christianity is not the Christianity of Jesus Christ. What is his Christianity? I'll tell you, it's getting right with God by believing in the one that God has sent, by believing in Jesus. Getting right with God is not about hanging around with Jesus. It's about believing in him. It's not about getting some perfect church or youth group attendance award. It's about believing in Jesus. You're believing in Jesus so that when the attendance is taken in heaven, you'll be there. Maybe you've heard some soft gospel message, and you mistakenly think that you became a Christian. I'm not saying it has anything to do with the good or bad that you've done. It's just that God doesn't weigh the good and the bad to see if you end up in the good place. That's not how it works. There's only one way to get to the Father, and that's through believing in Jesus. Then he wants you to press on to be his disciple. If Jesus asked you today, do you want to leave too? I'll tell you what the right answer is. The right answer is, no, I'm not going anywhere. I believe in you, not just about you. I believe in you. So I'm asking you, do you want to be sure, absolutely sure about your relationship with God? Then visit 911god.org. It's linked from the homepage of justaquestion.org. In the video on that site, I'll walk you through what it means to believe in Jesus. That's 911god.org. And I'll tell you, there's more on this subject. So check out, are you lost in the house? And is there a millennial exodus? They're in the Just a Question library of videos. That's, are you lost in the house? And is there a millennial exodus? I'm John Morris, and this has been Just a Question.